B-boy. From the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East Coast to the West, B-boys worldwide. We supposed to be blessed, still a B-boy.
B-boys, B-girls, we are back again with another interview. This time we're going back to a place where I say there must be something in the water. So many dope rappers have come out of this state. The Mitten, Michigan. Joining us tonight, Michigan's own Astray is in the house. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's good, y'all? Just chilling, man. Just doing pretty good.
So I ask everyone the same first question. What are your first memories of hearing hip hop?
First memories of hearing hip hop. I was blown away as a little kid. I was you hear like hip hop on the radio and stuff like that, but and then you start, getting tapes. I remember my first tape, hip hop tape was it was like back in the day, I don't know if y'all remember, but gas stations used to sell like the best of the best tapes, whether it was rock or hip hop or pop or whatever. And so my dad, my pops bought me a hip hop tape. It had like Dana Dane on it, Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, Run DMC. I mean, everybody, like anyone you can think of that was popping like 87, 88. That started the tidal wave of me with hip hop music. Like I remember my first real cassette was Public Enemy. It wasn't Fear of a Black Planet. It was I think it was called Apocalypse.
Apocalypse 91. Enemy
Yes,
Strikes
yes.
Black.
Yep. Oh my God, man.
That's my favorite PE album. Love that
Is it
album.
really?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
where that's where Flav has this song, New York Post, and the Can't Trust It.
Yep. That shit's hard, yeah.
Oh my God, that was something else. But yeah, like it was really hard to keep parental advisory tapes around. Like my dad was like, whatever, listen to whatever you want. But my mom, when I, came home to my mom's crib, she wasn't having it. So if it had parental advisory on it, she would find it in my room, like if I stashed it or something, because I always had to hide it from her. And she would just take it. She would basically steal it and throw it away. And I'd have to go try to get it again. But I ended up, smartening up, and I was like, I was borrowing tapes from my friends, but I was just borrowing the tape, not the cases. So she couldn't tell unless she like really looked at the titles of the songs, which some of those titles,
All right.
you know what I'm saying? But she didn't investigate that much. So I got away with that was my way of getting away with listening to, NWA and Two Live Crew and bro, something about being a kid, bro, and these rappers are just swearing like crazy, and I don't know what it was, but it was just so like fascinating to me. I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like hearing NWA or like Two Live Crew, especially, like you would listen to it and you'd just be like, it's almost like reading a Playboy when you're, or not reading, but like getting your hands on a Playboy
Right.
when someone, or when you're a little kid and you're like, oh my God, I know I shouldn't be listening to or looking at this, but I have a Playboy in front of me. This is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you remember those days?
Right, right.
Yeah, mine was opposite. My mom let me do whatever I wanted, and it was my dad that didn't. So I go visit my mom, and I go to the little store and get the singles like Ice Cube, whatever came out with all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was what was cool for me because it was like unacceptable elsewhere. So it was kind of that like hidden thing I had to do. So it was even better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
It
get
was,
it.
yeah, it was so rebellious in every single way I look at it. Like as far as how was just talking about the swear words, and my mom ain't want me to listen to that, and then just like the whole movement of hip hop, and it was dope. It was like my mom didn't want me to have it. All those aspects combined just made me want it even more. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's anything in life. If you can't have it, most likely you're gonna want it more.
And everyone in that era had that Two Live Crew as nasty as they want to be, whether it was a dub tape, a dub of a dub of a dub from a friend. Every kid had that tape.
Oh, absolutely. And most of the tapes I had were dubs of dubs of dubs.
Yeah.
Unless like I got them from my cousins. They kind of they weren't completely responsible to introducing me to hip hop for introducing me into hip hop, but they were like 4 years, 6 years older than me, and they just had everything. They had every rock tape you can imagine, every hip hop tape. It was like literally going down because they had a room in the basement of their crib, and they had this huge tape collection on the wall, and it was literally like being in the tape store. So I would go with my grandma. I would go over there like when they were in school or something like that, and I would steal tapes from my cousins, and I would return them. But I'd be like, "Yeah, bro, I had to borrow this, man." Like,
So at what point did you start thinking, maybe I can do this when you started writing yourself?
it was actually like, see, I had felt that way even before I discovered hip hop, just with music in general. Coming up as a kid, listening to everything my parents listened to, even at like 4 years old, I was singing along with stuff. I was rhythmically inclined to where like it wasn't hard for me to stay on beat and to learn the words and to whether it was a pop song, a rock song, or a hip hop song or anything. Like, back back when I was a kid, like before I really got into hip hop, I was exposed to like the watered down hip hop, like the MC Hammers and the Vanilla Ices and the Fresh Prince and shit like that. So, and even that shit was cool to me. I would never knock any of those guys because like that was a point in my life where they taught me a lot. I was just a little kid, you know what I mean? And but the funny thing is that it was just like I said, it was easy to mimic everything that they did, and I was like, wow, I can do this for anything. And that kind of like into my teen years, I was, when I was fully immersed into hip hop, I would sit there with tapes, like Twista, people like Twista, and I would push play and let it play for like a bar or two bars, and I would just listen really hard to whatever I was interpreting them saying, because sometimes a few lines would get past me where I'm like, damn, I couldn't understand anything that he said in that line, but I was learning, like, so I would rewind it, let it play, write down what I heard, and then by the time I was done writing all of that throughout the whole verse, like I knew how to spit the verse, and I could even spit it like fast, like Twister. So I did that with almost everything. Anything that I was just in love with, it either came, I could mimic it and rap it back, whether just from listening to it so many damn times, or if I just loved it that much, I would literally like write it down and try to say it myself, especially like the fast rap era, like the Twista and Bone and Crucial Conflict and Do or Die and all those guys. It's like that's when I was okay, what are they saying? All right, let me learn how to do this. So it was like I was teaching myself before I even knew that I was. So it's crazy.
And that's a tall task to take on trying to do Twista.
It was, well, man, the first time I ever heard Twister was that not Bone, Do or Die, Poe Pimpin'.
Pole pimping, yeah.
Oh my, bro, like there's certain there's certain events in the timeline of my life with hip hop. Certain events, like hearing Poe Pimpin' for the first time, that literally changed my it did it, like it changed the balance in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, this sounds so good that I have to learn it. I have to. Well, the motherfucker might be broke as shit, ain't collecting no dope or chips, but I be spitting more game than I'm out for the poker chips to get them hoes at the open lips and the provoking nips. and never gotta tell him any lies. But I mean, it was just like I thought Bone was dope, and then I heard that, and I was just like, holy shit, this dude Twister is a monster.
Next
So
level.
yeah, next level for sure. But Bone, I mean, even Bone like had such a huge impact.
Man, that Creeping on the Come Up EP, one of the best EPs ever. I mean,
That was a huge, I mean, even 10 times more than Twisted. Discovering Bone Thugs and Harmony and that, especially that Creeping on a Come Up, was one of the biggest hip hop life events that ever happened, that ever took place with me. And if it wasn't, if like that, there's a list of events, or let's say like CDs or tapes or whatever, that if these things would have never happened, I would have never started rapping. Like it had such an influence on me that that's one of the things that glued it to my life. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy thinking like, and even back then, see, like I'm into way more lyrical rap and stuff like that, and I became a huge like East Coast head as I was growing up. But before that, it was a lot of it was like West Coast and especially the Midwest, like the fast spitters.
so when did you graduate from, writing down those twisted lines to actually recording? How old are you? How was that process? Did you do it at home? Did you find a studio?
I found a well, my homeboy, shout out to one of my best friends, Stevie D. He was like, man, we was in like seventh or eighth grade. He's like, bro, there's studios in Saginaw. I've been looking in the yellow pages and there's studios around here that they'll record us. And Ron Terry was the first studio I ever went to. And anyway, my homie Stevie D found him in the yellow pages. So Steve called him, and then he had a convo with him, and he was like, Sean, you should, because my real name's Sean. He said, you should call him. And so I called him, and I was like, I actually like put my foot forward and I made an appointment. I didn't know anything about anything. So I was like, I didn't know that people charge for studio time. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I just knew that, hey man, I can rap. I don't even think the dude knew that I was white. I was just like, bro, hey, I can rap. I want to come and record. So he was like, well, yeah, come on through. Like, we'll set up a time. And I'm like, well, shit, I'm only 13, 14 years old, so I got to try to find a ride. So I was in middle school at the time, I remember. And my homeboy who became my manager, Nick Spalding, he took me to the studio because he was older, a little bit older, and he had his license. So he had his L's and was able to take me to the studio. And Steve was supposed to come with me, but then his grandpa was like, oh, the studio's in downtown Saginaw? No, you ain't going. I was just like, damn, now I gotta go dolo. But I didn't even care. I was like, I don't care if I go with Steve or without him. Like, that sucks that he can't come, but I'm still going. Like this, I'm gonna go get on the mic. That's like everything I've ever dreamed of. And even though I didn't know what was gonna happen or what was gonna take place. But anyway, so Ron Terry at his studio's name back then was Digital Dreams. So I recorded. He went through a couple beats. He's like, "Do you like this? Do you like that?" And back then, I was like really into like that funk West Coast sound with the high pitch. Like I just took some lyrics that I had and I kind of like improvised them into a song and made a song. And he didn't charge me nothing. He didn't say like, oh,
Damn.
and man, bro, I was even using the N word back when I was a
Oh,
kid, and he wasn't even mad at that. Like he was just like, oh, in that song that I said the N word because that's like I came up in Saginaw around. It was a multicultural thing. It was like a melting pot of people, so it wasn't abnormal for a white kid to be able to use that word. You know what I mean? When I was coming up. I mean, now it's like, yeah, that's definitely a no. And I know that the logic, common sense, like people maybe they won't care here, like, but you know what I'm saying? Like they won't care here, but they'll like that doesn't mean they're not gonna care if someone listening in Texas or someone listening in Nebraska or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like I used to use that when I was just a naive dumbass teenager, and I had to get told, like I even signed a God, I'm going way off the path right here, right now. But I signed this record deal with Ghetto Records, which was I was the only white boy with like 30 artists, and then the two guys that owned and ran the label, and that was in Saginaw. And I was saying it in my verses with them, and everybody was just like, "Fuck it, that's Stray." Yeah, I mean, because my that's what they that's what they call me, Astray. But they like everybody knows around here knows me as Stray. So there's just like that's whatever. Just let them go off. But then I like started like and I'm like, oh yeah, that's not a good idea to do that. Like,
It
because
ages
even though
bad.
these guys, even though the people around me accept it, like doesn't mean the world's gonna accept it. So I had to learn in that way.
You still have all your old music, just like for yourself?
You know that what the song that I recorded when I was 14 at that Digital Dreams, I don't have that. That got put on a cassette and I made copies of copies of copies and gave it to people around school and stuff like that. The next thing that I recorded was literally probably like 4 years later when I was 18 at Ghetto Records. And that I have access to it. I don't have my own copy, but I have like a MP3 of the songs that I recorded there. So yeah, those are out there.
Something I'm sure you get asked about a lot. Take us to up when you got connected with Paul Rosenberg, Shady Records. How did all that come together?
Okay, so in 2008, before so I started producing in 2004. And like I started taking rapping serious in 98. And then in 2004 I started producing as well. Within like like 2 years I was getting good enough to where I was like, I'm gonna start handing out like when I do shows as an artist and I'm on the bill with other artists that are bigger than me, I'm gonna start handing off beat CDs to like let them know, hey, I do beats if you want to fuck with my beats. And King Gordy was have you ever heard of King
Yeah, well,
Gordy?
of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
so he was real cool and real receptive to my beats, and he fucked around and we had a show that we did together, and he took my beats to the studio and did the King of Horrorcore mixtape, and it was like his first mixtape after the album The Entity, his first album. He used like half of my production on that, and then so I was like, oh shit, this is dope. And then he came back to me like, yo, you got more beats and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So he did what is considered today as like a Detroit classic album. It's called Van Dyke and Harper Music. And it wasn't like no wicked shit. It was like complete hood trap shit. You know what I mean? Like really raw gutter type shit. And it really showed a side of him that everybody loved and could connect with in Detroit. And even though his horrorcore shit he's really good as an artist, period. But he got on some raw ass hood shit because he's a hood ass dude. So like hearing him go that route and paint those pictures, it was like, oh shit, this is dope. Because I was pretty far out of the horrorcore phase by the time I started working with King Gordy, and he was fully in the horrorcore. So I was like, yeah, this is cool. We're cool. We're doing horrorcore wicked shit. But when he started doing the Van Dyke and Harper music, talking about just a bunch of hood shit, it was just like, wow, this is a classic album. And then I remember like it would get put in like categories of what are the most classic albums to come out of Detroit. What are the most classic out, and what that was on the list. King Gordy, he was signed to Web Entertainment, which was connected to Eminem's publishing. I'm not completely sure how this all worked, but Eminem recorded out of a studio called 54 Sound, and he recorded with the Bass Brothers, who had a
Yeah.
studio right next door called FBT, literally like 2 blocks away from each other. So you could walk. Like I walked back and forth to each studio, and it took 2 minutes. 54 Sound. Joel Martin owned 54 Sound. I think Joel Martin back then had something to do with Eminem's publishing. So they also had Web Entertainment in the building. So Web Entertainment was a part of the studio, and that was Joel's company, I think. And that's how Gordy and M, as far as I know, that's how they connected and everything. And so I did all this music for Gordy, and then they invited me down to the studio, and they were like, "Oh shit, we're gonna pay you, and we like everything you do, and if you ever want to come and use the studio for anything, just come down, and you're always welcome." And I kept that in mind, and I was like, and I didn't act on it at first, but I went home. Me and my girlfriend at the time broke up. I was like, man, what's stopping me from just going down to Detroit right now? So I moved down to Detroit, to the closest I could get to Detroit, with like to live with a friend that lived down there, which was Waterford. So it was still quite a drive, because 54 Sound Studios is in Ferndale. So Waterford to Ferndale was pretty far, but it was still way closer than Saginaw to Detroit or Ferndale. So yeah, I got to intern. So they offered me like this internship where I could just come use the studio whenever I wanted. So I went there every day. And then they even gave me a job to like make the transition of moving a little easier on my pockets. You know what I mean? Like I was like a runner for them. Like if they needed Starbucks or lunch orders or anything, I would go get them for them, and maybe do like a little bit of janitorial work or some shit. But most of the time I was in there making music. So I was just like, I was making money every week from doing that job. Plus I had like the studio to go into. Louis Resto. Shout out to Louis Resto, because it was his room. It was his studio room that I used to use. And it was literally like, imagine the most equipment you've ever seen in your life, because this dude is like an extreme pianist,
Okay.
just a musician overall. But like he's so like, picture like 10 keyboards in a room that's like half the size of like a bedroom, a small bedroom. So you're in there, you're sitting at your desk, and you got speakers way up here, and you're looking at the screen, and there's keyboards, analog gear, analog gear, analog gear. And it's like, that was the room that they allowed me to work in. So it was almost overwhelming, because I didn't know how to like program any of those keyboards or nothing. I was all digital. I was using Fruity Loops. So I was just like, just give me a computer. I don't need all this analog stuff. But I now appreciate analog shit way more than I used to back then. So yeah, I interned out of the studio for like a year and a half. I was in the building with Eminem a million times. It was almost an everyday type of thing. Then he moved, and he bought a studio down the street called Effigy Studio. I don't know if that's his studio now. He might just work out of his crib now, but he bought that studio. And then like after Eminem wasn't around no more, I felt kind of like, damn, well, all the opportunity here is kind of like dry. You know what I mean? Like it kind of phased out. So I moved back to my dad's, and he unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer, and he only had a couple months before he passed away. So then I after that I stayed home. I stayed back in Saginaw for a while, and I had met a lot of people in Detroit while in those days of interning out of M's studio. But then I got a call in 2011 from my homeboy Chief and Paradigm, and they were like, "Come be a part of Beats at Will, Paradigm's label." Paradigm is Kid Rock's DJ. Plus he's like this notorious rapper out of Detroit, like very well known, probably the most well known white rapper out of Detroit, besides the obvious Eminem,
Right.
right? But definitely one of the illest too. He's like, God, that dude is so talented, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so they're like, why don't you come down here and like be a part of this. We're trying to put together Beats at Will as like a real label, and we need an engineer, we need producers, we need artists, and you fit the bill for all those things. So it was just, I was like, bet, I'll go. So I went and I moved in with this dude named Dagda, who was part of the label, and this was downriver in Wyandotte. I moved down there. I was part of Beats at Will. Everything was going great for about a year, and then Beats at Will started falling apart because I think it was just too big for anybody to handle. Like too many artists, too many. It was good. Like we definitely made a name for ourselves, and Beats at Will already had a name because that was always Paradigm's record label that he put all of his music out under. So when you heard the name Beats at Will, you were already, especially in Michigan, you're like, oh yeah, Beats at Will, Paradigm's label. That's like, but up until then, there was no other artists on the label. Now there's Astray, Chief, Knox Money, Street Justice from Inkster, Dagda, Pony Boy, but yeah, like all these people, and then all these other people affiliated, like my homeboy Pat Deegan, Pat 313, shout out to him. He was, a major part of things. And Kev 313, Kevin Bora, he was part of it. So like everybody was trying to work as a team to get this thing rolling, but it just never happened. But anyway, I was like, well, fuck going home this time. My dad's passed away. My mom don't need me back at the crib. Like, I'm gonna chill, stay down here, because there's so much more going on in Detroit than there is little ass Saginaw. Saginaw is like a little, I don't know. Don't get me wrong, I got love for Saginaw, but it's like a little city that has really nothing going on but big city problems, like the crime rate, the murder rate, all that kind of stuff. And it's just like Saginaw is just a wild, dangerous ass little place. You know what I mean? Like, and there's nothing like it feels just like a dead end road here. Like, I hope it changes, and I really do sincerely. But I know like there's so much more going on in Detroit. Even today, right now, I live in Saginaw, and I'm like, man, I need to make my way back down to Detroit. So while I was in Detroit, I got one of the biggest opportunities of my life. So I had already intern for Eminem Studio, but that doesn't have anything to do with this next chapter. I met this representative from Shady who did a lot of work for Paul Rosenberg. So Paul would send him to Detroit to like do things for Eminem or I don't want to say run errands because that makes him sound small, but he was literally like Paul's like, okay, man, I need you to go do this and go do this. And homie did that shit, and he would link with a few people that I knew, like this girl, Emily Smalls. Shout out to her. She's such a sweetheart. He would fly in and he would have her like drive him around to all the stuff he needed to do for Paul and the label and M or whatever. One day he was like, this is so crazy how it happened. He was like, yo, on today's trip, like, let's listen to nothing but Detroit rap. I know you know a lot of rappers, Emily. Let grab all the CDs you have, the local CDs, and we're just gonna listen to them while we're driving in the car. That day later on, after all that took place and they had rolled around all day and they listened to music, Emily called me and she's like, "Yo, this dude, he really likes your CD. Like, we've been listening to like 50 CDs and he like yours is the only one he picked. Well, me and this other dude, shout out to Travis Chandler. He was like, yours is the only CD he picked. And I was like, what? Are you fucking serious? He's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I'll let you talk to him right now. He's in the car. So he gets on the phone. He's like, what's up, man? And he's like, yeah, I like your music and blah, blah, blah. I can't remember exactly what was said because this was all the way back in 2013. But he was like, can we meet tomorrow before I head back out of town? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So we figured out a place to meet. And this was the strangest meeting in the world to me because I was never planning on hearing what he said to me that day. It threw me for a loop big time. I almost walked away like kind of depressed because it wasn't what I wanted to hear. So I had been like messing with singing and incorporating singing into my music and doing hooks and stuff like that. And I have a lot of that on the album that I put out in 2013, the CD that he listened to in the car that made him, discover me. So anyway, he was like, "Man, you rap great. I think you're a great rapper, but I don't think that's how you're gonna get on. I think you're gonna get on through singing hooks for rappers, being like becoming a pop artist, doing all this, just singing, just focus on singing. Like we are, and plus we already have the world's number one white rapper on Shady, so it's like we don't need another rapper, white rap, especially a white rapper. So think about that, man. And here's all my info and get a hold of me. And I'm just like, man, I've been doing this since 2000, or I've been doing this since 1998. And in 2013, someone from Shady is interested in me, but it's not because of rap. It's because of singing. And singing was just like a little thing, like, okay, I'm just gonna do this because it's kind of like Drake. Drake came along and made it cool. Like he was a rapper that sang his own hooks and shit. So that was appealing to me. I was like, oh damn, I can add more depth to my music. You know what I mean? Like in a Drake type of way. I can make my hooks more catchy and more appealing to just a broader audience, but I can still kill it in the verses. And I was like, that sounds like a perfect formula. So Drake really inspired me to get in my singing bag and kind of bring that out of myself because I had never wanted to sing before. You know what I mean? Even though I could a little bit, I never wanted to incorporate like melodic type shit into my music. Lo and behold, when I did, that's when he found my CD and became interested. And so I went home and I was like, well, of course I'm not gonna like squander this opportunity. So let's work, bro. Whatever you think is, whatever you want me to do, I got you. I kept making songs. Or he would send me beats, and he'd be like, write a hook to this, and I'll try to chop it to these artists or these artists. We never got any placements, but Paul, through him, Paul kept hearing me because Shady is like this little. It's not little, but it's like smaller. It's a boutique label. You know what I mean? Like it's this smaller office that, like, if like Paul said, like every time I had to get up and use the bathroom, I would walk by my man's desk and he would be playing your music. And sooner or later, he got interested too. And he would so the dude that was I was working with, he called me. He was like, "Yo, man, shit just got kind of real. Paul wants to meet you now. So can you get here like in the next 2 days. And I'm like, fuck, go to New York, because they're stationed out of Manhattan. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, nothing, there was nothing that was gonna stop me from going. So I went there. I went up to Shady, and I met with Paul, and I met with Dro. I haven't said his name yet, but Dro, shout out to Dro. He's the one that got my music in front of Paul and Eminem. And so I had a meeting with Paul, and Paul was like, I really like what you do, man. I think there's a lot of potential. Do you want to sign a publishing deal with us where you're a writer and you write for pop artists and stuff like that? You write like melodic type of shit, and you produce. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, you know what I mean? Like, of course. So, long story short, so I left. That was in October. And then in April of the next year, I was officially signed, April 2015. October 2014, I went, I was offered the deal, and the deal took from October to April. So 7 months. It took 7 months to get the deal finalized. And in April, I can't remember the exact date, but I woke up and the little advance they gave me was in my bank account, and it was just like, holy shit, I'm signed to Shady. This is fucking crazy. Like, this is wild. And yeah, so ever since then, life kind of changed a little bit. Instantly became more popular in the hip hop world, because I was signed to Shady, like Shady Publishing, Shady Records, whatever it was. It was like people knew, damn, this kid just got signed. So that was really cool. Just for my fans that I had gained over the last, since I started, I posted on Facebook. I made this long post like, thank you everybody and blah blah blah, and this really cool thing just happened to me, and I announced it on Facebook. Well, M Live got a hold of that, and they posted it, and they like fact checked it, and they posted it on M Live, and then Double XL grabbed it. They seen it, and they were like, "Oh, Eminem signed this dude." So like everywhere, you can even go Google it now. Like if you Google Astray Shady, it's crazy because so many reputable blog in sites, like Double XL, MTV, Hip Hop DX, .com, all these .coms. It's everywhere, and those articles still exist. So it's funny that, like, if you look at my TikToks or my Instagrams, you'll see a lot of times I put Eminem signed this dude, and people think I'm lying all the time because they never, I didn't
Right.
get signed as an artist, but I'm not lying when I say Eminem signed me. So I feel like I do have the right to say that and use that to my advantage. And people will be bullshitting and thinking that I'm lying. I'll just be like, dog, just go Google the shit. Like, it's that easy. So
Did you have any memorable sessions from that time? You said you were in the studio with Amelot or any other artist. Anything memorable?
that's where I met Swifty McVeigh and started working with him. Joel Martin connected us, the guy that owned the studio. See, M didn't own that studio. M just That's where he had been recording since the Infinite days. Swifty had slid through there, and Joel was like, "Hey, Swifty, you met Astray? Yeah, he does beats and blah blah blah. He's a producer." And Swifty was like, "Oh, word, you got something on you?" And I gave him like 2 or 3 CDs of beats, and so me and Swifty, I've done like 6 songs for Swifty. I met the rest of D12. I didn't really get any placements on any of their projects, which would have been huge. But yeah, like a memorable time. I was there for the mixing session of the song with Eminem and Ti, Touchdown.
Oh, Touchdown. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that was just crazy. It was funny because the first day I ever went to 54 Sound, me and my manager drove there. We were like, there's no chance we're gonna see Eminem. Like, even though we're going to his studio, like, there's no dance. He don't come into the studio like that. He ain't gonna be there. Bro, it was crazy because we were first time meeting him, we were talking, me, Joel, my manager, Nick, and King Gordy, and I was showing this new song because Joel gave me vocals to redo a beat for King Gordy. So I redid this beat under King Gordy's vocals. I was showing it to them in the back lounge coffee where you get your coffee area. So we're sitting in this room, this lounge, and I hear this door open that I could hear the outside when it opened. So I was like, oh, that must be a back door. Like I wasn't like, oh shit, who's that? I just kind of just chilled and stayed cool. But I never in a million years would have thought that was Eminem that opened that door. So he's walking down the hallway and he like comes around the corner and he's right here. I'm sitting on this couch and he's literally right here. My manager, Nick, here's Joel and King Gordy. And I think someone says something like, hey, what's up, Marshall? Because everybody, it's so crazy. Like, everybody calls him Marshall. And he had a crazy amount of CDs in his hand. Like, I don't know why he was trying to carry it. He was like, he had so, like, it would happen to me, my dumbass luck. He fucking, spilt them everywhere, like not spilt, but like they dropped and he fumbled them and they went everywhere. And so then he gets down and he's like reaching on the floor and so now I'm looking at the top of Eminem's head to the right of me, reaching around the floor for CDs. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, this is what? And then he gets up, he sets the CDs on the thing and he's like, hi, I'm Marshall. And I'm like looking at him like with my heart literally like in my foot, bro. Like my heart fell in my foot. Probably, you know what I'm saying? Like I was looking at him like, yeah, I know. Like
I heard
trying
you.
not trying not to act any kind of starstruck or any kind of
Right.
anything. I was just like, what up, man? What up? Good to meet you. And that's all I could do. But literally I wanted to be like, bro, what up, man? Yo, you don't know how much of an influence you've been on my yeah. Let me tell you my life story. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Like, but nah, it was I kept my composure. I was proud of myself for doing that. So
Ill story.
yeah, it was wild, man. Like you don't ever expect to meet somebody like that. And when you do, you're like, did that really just happen? You know what I mean? Like all the artists I've ever met before the Shady deal was like at concerts and stuff and me trying to sneak backstage and give them my CD and like I mean there's so many I could name. And I know that now I'm looking back like, man, those guys probably didn't even take my CD with them at all. You know what I mean? They probably just set it down like, man, I don't want to carry this plastic around all night. But it was crazy. Like, there's so many I can name. Like, right now I'm thinking Fabulous, Bone, 3 6 Mafia, the Locks, all these people. Because there was a big venue in Flint, Michigan, and Flint's halfway to Detroit, so it's like only Saginaw to Detroit is like an hour and 45. So half of that to Flint. So there was this big venue that always brought through like big artists. And we would always go. And the whole time I would never, well, I mean, I would watch some of the show, but I was always like scoping around, like, the fuck can I sneak through the back and try to get at these artists? Because I know where they hung out in the back had also DJ'd at this other part of the building because it was this huge building. But anyway, it wasn't like I had no effort whatsoever to try to meet anybody. I didn't have to like think of a way to get back there and like finagle my way in there or whatever. It was just like he just walked through Eminem just walked through and said, "Hi, I'm Marshall," and dropped all his CDs and fucking. It was like it's still crazy when I think about it to this day.
Yeah, that's how I met Obi Trice because my we were opening for him and my friend found him at like upstairs at a bar, just chilling with his people. And he hit me
Oh
up about it,
shit,
and we went up there and started freestyling with him and everything. I didn't know I'd just be kicking it with him.
that's dope, man.
That's
That's
kind of how it
dope.
happened with me too.
Yeah, I met Obi. Me and I was in this competition, and Obi came to Saginaw, and he was like the special guest, and he was a judge for this. It's something that it was involving Def Jam. He was a judge though for all these performers, and I was one of the performers, and I won like the whole thing. And shout out to my homeboy Scheme, he was my hype man at the time. But we won. Yeah, that was the only time I ever met Obi, but he was cool. He was super cool.
After the whole Shady experience, you end up hooking up with homegirl Whitney Peyton, one of the
Yeah,
dopest female MCs out today. I
absolutely,
thought for years. And
a
Alpha
thousand
House
percent. Yep.
is great to see you. How did that come together?
Whitney just I really honestly I don't know exactly. I mean, Whitney had hit me up for a feature a long time ago, back in like 2016, that I unfortunately couldn't do it. I wanted to, but I couldn't do it at the time. That was that pretty much. And then I took a couple years off because I had some health issues. And then when I got back at it, so she hit me up and she was like, "Hey, I want a feature from you. I want to put you on this record." And I was like, I bet, we should have did that one back in the day. I just wasn't available. So after we did the record, she was like, "Oh, the record I'm talking about, it's called Sometimes, on her
Yes.
last album."
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did that record and it turned out really good. And she, her and her partner Felix, my homie Felix, he Bag of Tricks cat,
Hmm.
and he that's his rap name, and he's the engineer for the label. They were like, "Well, let's see if Astray wants to sign with us for a project." So I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it," because Shady didn't have anything over me as far as an artist. They just had my publishing, my pieces of my publishing, so I could do whatever I want as a free agent, as an artist. And so I was like, "Well, shit, hell yeah, let's link up. Like, what do I got to lose?" And plus, I'm like building momentum again, and from the couple years that I took off. And yeah, it was good. It was like I love that girl. I love my homeboy Felix. That's my dog. I made a great friend through, like, they're all from Arizona, so
Hmm.
all this, like, literally being assigned to them, I've only seen them for 7 days in person my whole life. The rest of it was internet, or whether it was FaceTime, on the phone, or anything like that. So it's crazy that we got that cool and developed that much of a relationship. But yeah, like Felix, he would, even me being like an engineer, recording people and stuff like that. Like Felix is like a top notch engineer, and I'm not saying I'm not too, I'm bad, but I'm good. I'm good. I'm a good engineer, but Felix is literally like super top notch. So he, like, through our friendship, he taught me a lot of shit about mixing and mastering, and he taught me a lot of. He used to throw shows too, like be a promoter, and he taught me about um little things about tips about throwing shows and shit. So he was extremely helpful in my career, and that's still my dog. Like, he's just such a good dude. And she's super cool herself. Like, shout out to my homeboy Willie North
Really
Pole.
cool.
He's the other artist on the label. And yeah, I can't wait until the next thing that we're gonna work on. I know her album is the next. I know that they were talking about like that's the next thing that's supposed to be coming out. So like I hope to have production and hooks and singing and some like any way I can help her out, like and just be part of it. I hope to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, throughout the years, I've met her multiple times, and we did a song together. She's been on the podcast, but she's just always been so mad cool and
Oh yeah.
super dope. I mean, she's just this little thing, but she just kills it with the lyrics. Nothing but respect and love for Whitney Peyton.
Yeah, it's cool. She's so cool that it's like gotten to be around her like here and there. Like because like she'd come through Michigan on one of her little tours, or like when I was out there, I seen her for like a day. I was out there for like 7 days and I seen her for a day. And she's so cool that it's like, man, I wish I had more time to spend with you, because like we're just like the way we're clicking, like in the convos and everything, like I just wish we could sit here and talk for like 6 hours, and you know what I mean? But her time is always so like, I gotta go here, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. She has her hands in a lot of pots. But so do I, so I feel her, you know what I mean? Like I do a lot of things. I'm not just an artist. So it's a lot of it. Trying to time manage that shit is tough.
Well, winding down, let everyone know where they can find you, your social media tags, websites, anything.
At this point, you can just search Astray on Facebook, just Astray. And then on Instagram and TikTok, it's at Astray313, as well as YouTube. It's at Astray313. So, and though I don't ever really get on Twitter, I don't really get on Snapchat, Threads. I think everything I post on Instagram goes to Threads. But yeah, those are the three main ones to follow me on, like Twitter. I'm sorry, not Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And YouTube, obviously, for sure, YouTube too.
I appreciate your time. I mean, keep killing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hell
Have a
yeah.
good night.
You too, man. Yeah, nice meeting y'all.
Yeah, you
Hey,
too.
hit me up. Hit me
Peace.
up anytime.
All right. No doubt.
All right.
Still a B-boy, from the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East coast to the west, B-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed. Still a B-boy, from the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East coast to the west, B-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed.